For the Sake of My Children, a novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel narrates the life story of an Australian girl who fell in love with a Saudi man. Then she converted to Islam, married her Arab lover, and traveled with him to the Islamic world. This book is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on a true love affair between a former Christian girl and a Muslim immigrant. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Therefore, any resemblance to actual people, living or dead, events, or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 16. The Village Head and the Beautiful White Lady. The village chief is a notorious womanizer who suffers from a sexual obsession. His name is Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed. His ideal in life is the Prophet Muhammad. Every young woman he saw her and lusted after her beauty or sexy body, he made her his wife. Every year he divorces his 4 wives and marries another set of 4 virgin girls. No family can refuse his proposal for their daughter's marriage. He is like Al-Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was addicted to marriage. Al-Hassan used to divorce 4 wives and marry a set of 4 virgin girls in their place at once. Even in a few cases, the village chief forced married men to divorce their beautiful wives, married them, and raped them in halal manners. He justified his vicious demands by referring to the example of the beautiful wife Zainab bint Jahash and her husband Zayd ibn al-Rasul, the adoptive son of the Prophet Muhammad. The alleged messenger of God divorced her from him with a verse of the Quran, and her marriage to the Prophet Muhammad was conducted by Allah himself, and the angel Gabriel was the sole witness. The arrival of the beautiful white woman, Irshad, in that village made the chief Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed conclude that she would be his new bride. First of all, he had never actually seen a blonde foreign woman in his entire life. He only saw white women in newspapers and magazines. On that day, Irshad broke all the rules and restrictions of Islamic Sharia when she came with those angry pilgrim women while her clothes were torn. During her struggle with her 2 captors, her Islamic burqa was cut into pieces, and her other undergarments were also torn. Therefore, most of her sexy white body was exposed while she was half naked. Chief Sheikh Ahmed is the first to express his admiration for the new foreign woman's beauty. He took a deep breath and let it out by saying, Subhanallah or Hallelujah. The Australian widow appeared to the leader not only as a beautiful human female, but as an immortal virgin from paradise, about whom he had read in his sacred religious texts, the Holy Quran, and the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. This is how he saw her. She has big buttocks and high, spear-like breasts. Her color is like white milk, her neck is like a bottle of ghee, her cheeks are like apples, and her lips are like pineapples. Her long blonde hair is like a ponytail, her nose is like the Egyptian Queen Cleopatra, her eyes are like the eyes of the beautiful Arab Layla who made Qays a madman after her love, and her beauty is like an Indian movie superstar heroine. Therefore, once he saw the beautiful and sexy white woman, he decided to add her to his harem list of beautiful virgins. That night, Chief Muhammad Ahmed orders the white woman, Irshad, to stay in his house and under his hospitality until the village elders make their decision on her case. She has no choice but to accept his invitation. During dinner, the head of the village asked Irshad to tell him about her past life and how she fell into the hands of these 2 men who kidnapped her from the city and brought her to his village and imprisoned her inside the shrine of the holy mountain. The white woman became honest with him and told him briefly about her life in the Mujahideen camps in Kandahar city and why she left the place after her valiant Saudi husband was martyred in his jihad war against the American infidels in New York City. The notorious womanizer, The village chief becomes overjoyed when he heard that the beautiful white woman had lost her Arab husband and is currently living as a single mother with her 7 children. He decides to marry her and bring her children to live with her in his village. He became very hilarious when he found out she has underage daughters. The dirty old man thought of raping her white female children too. And so, after the lovely and sexy white widow enjoyed the delicious meal that was specially prepared on her honor, the head of the village, Sheikh Ahmed, revealed to her what was in his heart. The Australian white woman Irshad is shocked when the old man proposed to marry her in front of his wife. Very politely, she rejected his proposal and thanked him for offering to help her raise her 7 children. The Australian woman innocently believed that the village chief was like a Western man and that a woman could easily reject his marriage proposal and get away with the consequences of her rejection. The ugly expression on his face annoyed and horrified her, revealing his anger at her refusal of his proposal. Irshad understood that his heart was wounded, his pride shattered, and he felt deeply humiliated before his wife, children, and servants. He felt as if the white, foreign, Christian, infidel woman had spit on his bearded face when she refused to accept his proposal to marry her. After dinner, the pretty, blonde, white woman was escorted by some of the chief's women, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed, to a small hut that had been prepared for her accommodation in the village. And, because she was overcome with fatigue, exhaustion, and sleepiness due to the lack of sleep and rest in the last night, she spent locked up alone inside the shrine. The Australian woman slept like a tree trunk. She hasn't slept so well in such a comfortable bed since leaving the Mujahideen camps. The male passengers continued to sexually harass her throughout her trip between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The beautiful white woman Irshad is still wearing her tattered clothes. When she fell asleep on the big bed, half of her sexy body was exposed. She never expected that one of the male villagers would dare attack her while she was sleeping in the village chief's residence. She thought that all the men of the village were religious and righteous, like their women, who were about to kill her when they thought that she had committed adultery and got fucked in her pussy by the dicks of 2 immoral men from the city inside their holy shrine for the good guardian of God on earth who died a long time ago. Therefore, the beautiful, sexy, semi-naked Australian widow slept peacefully snoring until midnight before the village chief himself approached her hut and made a sexual attempt on her. When the notorious womanizer came and caught a glimpse of her beautiful face and her exposed sexy body, his sexual desire became stronger than before. He had never felt this overwhelming sexual desire before for any of the teenage beauties of the village whom he married and violently robbed of their virginity. And so, the shameless Caliph Harun al-Rashid opened his mouth and eyes and stood like a statue. Then he began walking like a wolf towards his unarmed and unaware dear prey. His body burns with uncontrollable lust. He entered the room like a thief in the night and closed the door behind him. Then he slowly started to walk towards the bed where the beautiful and sexy white lady was sleeping. It's like a lion or a hyena sneaking into the cave of an innocent deer. The gazelle is still asleep and does not realize the danger at its fingertips. Irshad is still sleeping in the same position, her legs and thighs fully exposed. She is lying on her back with her legs spread apart. Such an exciting sexual position made the village chief's heart beat faster and his penis stood like a thick stick supporting a tent inside his jilbab, which was like a woman's nightgown. The sight of her bare legs and white thighs made the wolf strip off his human clothes and stand completely naked beside her like a genie emanating from Aladdin's lamp. If the white woman suddenly awoke and saw the red chimpanzee standing in front of her, she might have mistaken him for a wild beast that had broken into her hut, and fear of him might have caused her sudden death. The coyote's sexual desire arose from lust to madness to sexual obsession. His lust has completely overpowered him. Therefore, he put his hand on her dress and wrapped it. Exposing the sight of her sexy little black lingerie drove him crazy. He could now also see her bare shoulders and neck. He started kissing her shoulders, her thighs, and her cheeks. He began to smell her female body as a dog smells its bitch. Then he climbed to the top of her body. The heavy weight of his body caused Irshad to wake up from her deep sleep. Her first reaction is that she is having a terrifying nightmare. She thought she was still in the dark tomb of the shrine and her kidnappers returned and brutally raped her. Then she remembered where she was and thought the hut had collapsed or that the cupboard had fallen on her. But when the wolf started biting her lips and licking her cheeks like a mad dog, her mind conveyed the right message to her. She understood that a bad man in the village was trying to rape her. So, she opened her mouth as wide as she could and went on to scream loudly. She tried to free her legs, hands, and the rest of her body, but the heavy weight of the rapist Afghan man rendered her impotent. The horrified Irshad continued screaming at the top of her voice. The village chief was enraged by her shouting. Therefore, he inserted his 5 fingers into her mouth and pressed her against the pillow. Irshad locked her sharp teeth tightly onto his fingers. The village chief felt her teeth dig into his fat fingers, down to the bone. The terrible pain caused his body to roll off hers and fall to the ground. The terrified white woman let go of his fingers and jumped to the ground. She immediately got to her feet and rushed towards the door, opening it. At the door, she found a guard stretching out his arms to block her way. She pushed him with both hands until he fell, and she ran towards the outer door. The guard fell on his back as if a dirt dump truck had emptied its human garbage. The naked chief got up like the naked King Pharaoh and ran after the blonde foreign woman. When he came out of the room, he stumbled upon the body of his guard, who was thrown to the ground, and he also fell flat on him, crushing him under his huge body. Then the half-naked, fleeing white woman reached the outer door and opened it. Unfortunately, outside, she finds several armed guards and ferocious dogs blocking her way to escape from their leader, a notorious womanizer. Therefore, these guards and their dogs prevented her attempt to escape. At once, the guards seized the fleeing white woman and took her back to her hut. As soon as the guards brought Irshad back, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed yelled at her, "My whole house is guarded by guards armed with rifles and dangerous ferocious dogs. Each of these large dogs can eat a horse, so, O Christian infidel, never dream of escaping from here." When he said his threatening and warning words, he ran towards her and pushed her against the wall. Irshad was surprised by his blatant attack. Her body hit the wall, and she had a terrible pain in her head. Overcoming the pain, she stood up and pushed him back. He came again and attacked her. This time she is ready for him. She scratched his face with her fingernails and kicked his body with her feet. He leaned back, still clutching her long blonde hair. As he pulled her head, she struggled for some time to free her hair from his hands. When she couldn't free herself, she used her legs and kicked him hard across his body. He was forced to free her hair when she hit him with her foot on his erect penis. Once she freed her hair, she ran away from him. He chased her around the room like a rooster chasing a chicken. He caught up to her, overtook her, stopped her, and grabbed her waist from behind. She could not use her hands or legs to free her body from his grip. She violently struggled to free herself, but she couldn't. While she was being held, the evil man started talking to her again. "I wanted to marry you, O white woman, in a halal Islamic marriage, even though you are an infidel Christian, according to God's book, the Noble Quran, and the Sunnah of our Prophet Muhammad, who married his Jewish wife Safiya bint Huyay. But you rejected me without a valid reason. Now I will treat you as a maidservant or a slave girl who is owned by my right hand and sleep with you without marriage, as our Prophet Muhammad, the Chosen One, slept with his Egyptian Christian maidservant Maria the Coptic without marriage. Most likely, you're a street prostitute. You were roaming the streets of Kandahar city at night until these 2 bound men kidnapped you in the middle of the road and raped you in your pussy and ass inside the holy shrine of God's Saint Maki Shabak Jabbar al-Maksura. Most likely you became a street prostitute after your Saudi Arabian husband died in the jihad war against the infidels in America. I heard that an uncircumcised Christian infidel woman like you cannot live for 1 week without being sexually fucked by a man with his dick in her pussy or her anus." When Chief Muhammad Ahmed spoke these dirty sentences, he assaulted the Australian widow, Irshad, and pushed her against the wall. Her body hit the wall again and she was in excruciating pain. The old man who is addicted to marriage is big in body like Goliath, and the Australian woman Irshad is small in size in front of him like the Hebrew shepherd boy David. As a matter of fact, Sheikh Ahmed is an extraordinarily tall and strong Afghani. He looks like a Taliban terrorist, and so forced the Australian widow to the ground. She knelt down and continued to fight for her freedom. He grabbed her hand and twisted it behind her back. Irshad started screaming in pain. Somehow, she managed to grab his body and bite him again. She was released as a result of the pain of her venomous bite. The old geezer felt like a fierce lioness, bit off part of his body, and wanted to eat him alive. The extremely frightened white woman immediately hit him in the face and rushed away. He chased her again like a male animal chasing its female animal to fuck her pussy. She is screaming now at the top of her voice. The old demon incarnated in human form was able to reach her and grab her body again. This time he pushed her onto the bed. She fell on her back. He climbed onto her half-naked body as his hands pressed her head against the pillow. He is completely naked like the ghost who rose as a zombie from his grave. She kicks and screams. He is sweating and shivering. He was like a hungry dog that caught an innocent cat. She continued to struggle under his weight. He brought his big, despicable mouth, which was foaming like a raging camel, to her small mouth, either to kiss her or to bite her. She hit his face with her forehead. Blood flowed from his mouth. He left her and jumped back. Irshad pushed him away and started running. He didn't chase her this time. Instead, he grabbed his bleeding mouth and looked at her. She stood in a corner. When she realized he wasn't attacking her, she attacked him instead. He managed to hit her before she touched him. His blow this time was so strong that it made her fall to the ground. As soon as she fell, he jumped on her body like an old stray dog, a scoundrel jumping over a small pet doggy. She couldn't struggle much this time. He grabbed her dress and tore it in half. When she saw that her dress was open in 2 parts, she resisted. But he kept tearing her clothes off. She kicked him. She hit him. She slapped him. Irshad scratched and bit him. But all those blows didn't stop him from stripping her clothes. He kept undressing her piece by piece. He grabbed her black bra and pulled it from her large breasts. The sight of her fully exposed boobs only added to his sexual frenzy. Before he attacked her again and raped her, she hit him on the stomach with her right foot. That last kick made him stopped and backed off. When she was released, she too got up and walked backwards. She is stunned and amazed at what is happening to her. For a while, both of them struggle to breathe. Irshad stood afar and looked at him as a dangerous beast or a terrible demon. He looked at her with red eyes filled with lust. His mouth is still bleeding. He could now see her naked body standing in front of him. Her nakedness was covered by only a small piece of underwear. Her black underwear hung like a bandage over her naked body. He is also naked, his cock is swollen, and he is standing like a gunner on top of a military tank. The sight of her naked body prompted him to try again. He was overcome with sexual lust and attacked her again. She hit him violently on his head, face, and body, but she couldn't push him away. It seems that the old human beast has turned into a predatory dinosaur. He had already ripped off all of her clothes. She was left with only her black panties, which were like wearing a swimsuit, in the swimming pool. Then he forced her to the ground. She struggles now less than before. She's exhausted. She felt that her strength could let her down at any time. She loses confidence in her ability. She understood that her weaker feminine strength would not be able to struggle forever against his superior masculine strength. He forced her under his heavy weight. She can now fight only with her mouth and eyes. She screams and curses him in his face. She referred to him by every bad name she knows in the Afghan language. He didn't notice her harsh words. His only goal now is to pull off her last cover and force his red cock inside her white hairy pussy. The Australian widow is like a dying drowned woman in deep waters who clings to whatever comes her way. She grabbed his hair and pulled it. She scratched his face. She spat on him. She cries for help. But all her efforts did not drive him away from her body. He is like a vampire who found fresh human flesh and devoured it. Then she felt his right hand grab her small underwear and began to pull it off. At that critical time, Irshad grabbed his shoulder and bit him again. He was screaming loudly like a coward. Then he left her body and tried to jump off her body. She did not leave his shoulder. He was screaming even louder and hitting her all over the body to get his shoulder off her teeth. Her teeth seemed to be like sharp nails driven deep into his flesh. Finally, he pulled violently and released himself. He hit her in the face and ran towards the door. She took a small stool and threw it at him. He quickly reached the door and opened it. Then he fled in terror. He fled from her in terror, just like one of those two cowardly men who kidnapped her from the city and attempted to rape her, and when they could not, they locked her in the holy shrine and escaped from her. She ran to the door, but he locked it behind him from the outside and imprisoned her inside. Irshad got to the door too late. She started banging on the door with both hands, shouting loudly, "Coward, coward. Open the door, you evil man. If you come back here, I will kill you. I'll break your square bald head. May God kill you, you cowardly and insolent old man." The Australian white woman, who was severely beaten and physically abused, kept knocking on the door for a long time. As she banged on the door, she would shout her threats and call for one of the guards, servants, and family members to come and save her from the evil usurper chief of their village. She also tried to open the door, but she could not. After some time, Irshad felt very tired and exhausted. She stopped her vain attempts to try to call someone to save her or to open the door. She then retreated to a corner and sat down. She is anxious, exhausted, and gasping for breath. Every part of her naked body caused her excruciating pain. She was bleeding profusely from her teeth, forehead, cheeks, stomach, back, shoulders, hands, and legs. Her clothes are scattered in small pieces all over the hut. She became naked, wounded, and broken, as if she had had a fight with a beast. She is in a very miserable condition. Never in her life had she expected it to turn into such a desperate situation. She hated herself. She wished she were dead and gone before such a fateful day came in her life. Her eyes are wide open. She couldn't make out the things in front of her eyes. She closed and opened her eyes several times before she could clearly see the things around her. Her mind began working again, and her eyes could now discern the bitter, physical world in which she had awakened and found herself living. In those critical moments, she remembered her revolver loaded with live bullets. Alas, she remembered that the evil village chief, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed, took her defense weapon as soon as she reached his house. At that tough time in her life, which filled with many years of abuse, suffering, and violence in the Islamic world, the Australian Christian girl, Susan Peterson, who became the Muslim woman Irshad Al-Shamri, remembered how her loving parents, Christian friends in the church, and fellow students in the University of Sydney tried to prevent her from marrying a Muslim immigrant man from Saudi Arabia, but she rejected their wise advice. She turned her back on everyone. She even rejected her Lord Jesus Christ and followed God's alleged prophet Muhammad. She left Christianity and converted to Islam. She changed her name from Susan to Irshad. Today, she knew and understood that she had sold herself to Satan and became his slave. Since the day Susan married one of Satan's children, the devil became her father-in-law, and she became his daughter-in-law. Irshad becomes a helpless wife in the hands of a tyrannical, controlling, and abusive husband. She also became a sexual object for lustful men in the third world. These wicked Muslim men see nothing but fresh meat in a woman, which their demonic god has given them the divine right to devour and eat her like cannibal beasts. The white woman has been abused, raped, tortured, and enslaved for a long time by an evil tyrant who deceived her through his false religiosity. In such an abusive Islamic world, the Australian wife, Irshad Al-Shamri, spent 3 years in Saudi Arabia and 5 years in the Mujahideen camps in Afghanistan. During those 8 years, she had not encountered the evil she now encounters in the lustful village chief's house. She figured she might not make it out alive from the house of this notorious womanizer and sexual pervert. She concludes that the evil village chief and his armed guards and voracious guard dogs will not let her out of their village alive. Their leader will abuse her and enslave her because she has become, as he told her, the slave of his right hand whom his religion has entrusted to him. He could rape her day and night without the sanctity of the bond of lawful marriage, because his Quran gave him that right in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. Irshad concluded that she would never see her 7 children again. However, the brave foreign white woman decided to kill her abuser and expected his armed guards to kill her. She would rather be killed or become a prostitute on the streets of Kandahar city than marry against her will a sex predator who is as old as her grandfather. Chapter 17. The White Witch's Unforgivable Crime. On that fateful night, as soon as the news of the brutal murder of their chief reached the ears of the people of the village, all the residents gathered around the house of the Honorable Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed. They came in large numbers of men and women, boys and girls, and children. They had come there to punish the impure Christian infidel White Witch who desecrated the holy mountain of their shrine by committing adultery inside it with 2 men. She is also the white horde demon who killed the good chief of their village. They expected the village elders to pass the sentence of stoning on the wicked white woman and bring her to the open ground to be stoned to death. The village elders hold an emergency meeting and collectively agree not to send the white woman to the police, but to be executed by the villagers for the terrible crimes she committed in their holy shrine and peaceful village Sharf al-Banat or girl's honor. Accordingly, the sheiks sentenced the Australian woman, Irshad, to death on charges of desecrating their sacred mountain of the righteous saint and killing their blessed leader. May God have mercy on him. The death sentence has to be carried out of the culprit White Witch on the following day afternoon when the sun reaches the heart of the sky. The elders differed in the method of executing the foreign white woman, who is declared by them as a criminal adulteress and bloodthirsty murderer. Some preferred to follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad, who killed the infidel old hag woman Gurfa for criticizing him. The biography of the Prophet mentioned that the Messenger of Allah killed Gurfa in a painful and cruel way. He tied her hands and feet with ropes on 2 camels, then he drove the huge brutes in opposite directions and split her body in 2. Accordingly, some of the village elders wanted the infidel Christian White Witch, Irshad al-Shamari, to be subjected to such a brutal death that the wicked old hag woman was executed. The biography of the Prophet mentioned that Gurfa was the chieftain of a large Qurayshi tribe and the wisest woman in the Arabian Peninsula. But other leaders among the village elders preferred to stone the unbelieving Christian woman to death. The latter proposal was accepted on the grounds that everyone in the village could take part in the killing of the harlot of Babylon who had desecrated the holy shrine of the righteous guardian of God on earth and killed the chief of the village. Meanwhile, the stabbed body of the infamous womanizer and rapist Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed was transferred to Kandahar General Hospital. He was dying when some of his bodyguards and relatives took him to the city hospital. Some of the elders have already concluded that their leader was assassinated by a white Christian infidel woman who was an adulterous Christian infidel. They conclude that the foreign blonde woman is most likely a white witch and the devil's wife. Firstly, she is the adulterous whore who desecrated their holy shrine by committing adultery with 2 immoral men inside. Secondly, it is the white witch who killed the blessed head of their village. May God have mercy on him and put him in peace and dwell him with his 72 virgin nymphs in paradise. Therefore, she is the prostitute, the witch, the impure Christian infidel, and the uncircumcised wife of the damned devil who brought great abominations to their peaceful village. Accordingly, they decided to kill her by stoning her to death as a punishment for what impure her hands had done. They want every villager, male and female, to take part in killing the cursed Christian White Witch who is the wife of the stoned Satan. After issuing their death verdict, some armed guards dragged the widowed Australian woman, Irshad, from the hut where she was kept in it at night while she was completely naked and tied by strong ropes to a big open field in the center of the village, which is used by men and boys for football matches and for donkey and horse racing. While the guards were dragging her, many village women and girls took off their shoes and threw them on the naked body of the so-called White Witch and impure Christian infidel. Young underage girls spat on her face. Some of the male children picked up small stones and threw them at her body. Irshad's face was disfigured and her already naked body was filled with numerous blows, slaps, and floggings by the relatives and guards of the slain sheikh, the village chief. As they take her to her brutal execution, the condemned Australian woman is subjected to cruel torture and unbearable emotional pain from all those blows, kicks, and insults. At that critical time, Irshad remembered that Canadian Muslim girl who was stoned to death by the Mujahideen in the camps long ago. She remembered, because of her wrong advice, that the innocent Afghan sweetheart Scheherazade was killed in a very cruel way and her Syrian lover was brutally flogged and crippled for life in a wheelchair. As a result of this memory, Irshad concludes that Scheherazade's blood has fallen on her head. She hopes that her execution will not be as painful as when she saw how the Canadian Muslim girl who was stoned suffered. She longs for death to save her from her unbearable torment. As they drag her on the ground while she is completely naked like an animal being led to slaughter, the Australian woman Irshad hears that the villagers condemn her with many dirty words of insults, curses, and condemnations. She tried to talk to them and tell them that she killed the village chief because he was a dirty old man, and he tried to rape her while she was sleeping in his shit hut at his demon-haunted house. Their loud voices and their many insults did not allow her to speak to them. Yet she continued to scream and beg for her life. Many of them are saying, "We are taking the White Witch to the slaughter place." During those last tragic moments of her life, Irshad recalled how she had managed to protect herself from being brutally raped by the evil chief. When he made another attempt to rape her while she was stripped by him completely naked, she used a small medal she had found in the Little Cinnamon where she was imprisoned and stabbed him in the stomach. He fell like a raging camel hit on the head with an axe. Foam started flowing from his despicable mouth and blood trickled down from his stabbed naked body like a red liquid and covered everything. Even his abundant blood covered her naked body, which was bleeding with her pure blood. Immediately, his armed guards rushed inside and started beating her mercilessly until she fell. Then they dragged her half-conscious body out and locked her up in another small hut which was created to house dogs. After that, they spread the disturbing news around the village that the infidel white Christian infidel woman had killed their great leader, Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed. One guard went around the village in the middle of the night, just like the Misaharati in Ramadan, while announcing in loud the brutal murder of the great chief Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed by the white infidel woman who committed adultery with two men inside their holy shrine in the Mountain of God. For those who are not knowledgeable, the Misaharati is one of the oldest, most deep-rooted Islamic traditions found during the holy month of fasting, which is called Ramadan. Al-Misaharati is the name given to the person who walks and beats a drum in residential neighborhoods at night to wake people up to eat their sahur, a meal eaten before the beginning of the fast, before morning prayers. Meanwhile, the medical staff of the city hospital saved the life of the stabbed village chief. His bleeding stopped and the wound caused by the stab wound of the white foreign woman Irshad was sewn up. His guards knew that the very frightened Christian woman used a sharpened metal and stabbed the leader in the stomach when he made another attempt to rape her. But none of them dared to confront the family of their village chief with the truth, or to report to the hospital or the police for what reason she had killed him. They concluded that he died and departed to Janatul Firdaus, where there are virgin nymphs. Therefore, they decided to hold a martyr's wedding for him after his funeral. They believed he is like the martyrs of Allah who did not die, but he is alive in paradise and enjoying fucking with his big phallus the pussies of the 72 virgins. The Quran said those who died in the way of Allah are not dead, but are alive with Allah in paradise. Think not of those who are slain in Allah's way as dead. Nay, they live, finding their sustenance in the presence of their Lord. Surah Ali Imran 3, verse 169. The guards took his naked, stabbed, murdered body in a car and transported it to the largest hospital in Kandahar city. After his deep wound was treated, the sheikh remained in a coma in the intensive care unit. The hospital staff then reported the matter to the police authorities. The police issued an arrest warrant for the white, foreign, Christian woman who stabbed and attempted to assassinate the chief of the village Sharif al-Banat. When they learned that his life had been saved, the relatives of Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed lied to the policemen by telling them that the foreign Christian woman, Irshad al-Shamari, is a new Christian bride for their leader, whom he married according to the Holy Quran and the blessed Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. For some selfish motive, the Christian bride refused to allow her Afghani Muslim groom to have sex with her on their first wedding night. She made a condition to the village chief that unless he wrote half of his property in her name and divorced his 3 other Muslim wives, she would not allow him to sleep with her. The rich leader refused to transfer half of his property to her and tried to forcefully sleep with her because Islamic Sharia allows him to rape her because she is his 4th wife by law. Before sleeping with her, he was forced to beat her with his big stick to subjugate her to him because the Quran allows a husband to beat his disobedient wife in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34. These relatives also forged a marriage certificate and presented it as evidence to the police authorities against the so-called disobedient and rebellious Christian wife. The false marriage contract was prepared by the imam of the village mosque and signed by 2 male witnesses and another fake signature that they claimed was the signature of the groom, Sheikh Ahmed. They knew that Islamic law does not require the bride's signature in her marriage contract. The relatives of the notorious womanizer paid large bribes to the imam of the only mosque in the village and his false 2 male witnesses. When the Kandahar police reached the village, they found that some men had dug a hole and buried half of the white Christian woman's naked body inside the ground. It was a sweltering summer day. Unjustly sentenced to death, Australian woman Irshad felt as if she had been buried in a molten volcano boiling with fiery lava. She was sweating from her head to her feet as if she were pouring hot blood, and her naked body was burning with caustic acid. Her state of mind could not be described in words. She became very frightened when she saw these villagers gathering around her like wild beasts surrounding a wounded deer and unable to move. She could hear her heart pounding in her chest and her head ringing like the bells of hell. And she concluded that she would be killed the evilest of killing, and her soul would come out and land in the fire of hell. Once again, the Muslim widow, convicted of stoning, Irshad al-Shamari, remembered that apostate Christian girl, Susan Peterson, who distanced herself from her Christian religion and converted to the cursed Islamic religion. She regretted that she refused to accept the advice of her Christian parents, brother, friends, and classmates and turned her back on the Lord Jesus Christ and embraced the alleged prophet of God, Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Kilab. But what regret could do now after it was too late? In those difficult moments, the Australian widow, Irshad, wished that someone would shoot her in the head and free her from those horrific feelings that control her mind and heart and torment her body. It is either a miracle or sheer luck that the Afghan policemen in Kandahar made it to the soccer field and donkey race just in time to stop the execution of the Christian foreign white lady by the angry villagers who thought she killed their righteous village chief and defiled their holy shrine. When the policemen arrived, the villagers started collecting stones, bricks, and firewood. They decided after stoning her and then burning her unclean body with fire and turning it into ashes. They are waiting for their elders to announce the start of the stoning ritual ceremony. Policemen rushed inside the stadium and ordered the elders to stop the execution immediately. When the elders refused to obey orders, the police fired tear gas to disperse the angry crowd. Some of the enraged villagers threw stones at the policemen themselves. This led to the police firing live bullets at those who continued to throw stones at them. Some were shot dead, some seriously injured, and some of them died by stampede and trampling thousands of feet under. Despite this, most of them managed to escape alive. Because of the fear of being killed by live bullets, many boys and girls fled outside the village and hid among the trees, hills, creeks, and inside the dens of hyenas and foxes. Many unmarried girls, teenage girls, and other female minors were gang-raped old folks and young men in the wilderness. They took advantages of finding those unmarried girls being alone in the wilderness for the first time without their male relatives to protect their bodies and virginities. After the angry villagers dispersed and fled to their huts, and some of them fled outside the village, the police dug up the body of the naked Christian foreigner, who was buried alive, from inside the ground, as if they had exhumed the grave of a dead white girl and took out her remains. Then they put her under arrest. By this time, the naked white Australian widow had become unconscious and half dead either from the sweltering heat or the unbearable terror of being buried alive and attempted to be stoned to death.